So in this video, we're going to learn a new shortcut. It's going to be called the Hypotenuse Leg Theorem. So for us to be able to use the Hypotenuse Leg Theorem, we have to have a right triangle. We have to have our two legs. The hypotenuse will always sit across from my 90-degree angle. Okay, our rules are, it has to be a right triangle, so it has to have a right angle. The sides that form the right angle are called the legs. The sides that are opposite is called the hypotenuse. So for us to be able to use Hypotenuse Leg Theorem, we have to have right angles. We have to have congruent corresponding sides, or hypotenuses, and then we also have to have congruent corresponding legs. So congruent corresponding hypotenuses, one set of legs, and they both have to have right angles. Okay, so here's basically the same thing. So you have to have two right angles, you have to have congruent hypotenuses, and then you also have to have a pair of congruent legs. Okay, so given I have this triangle, I have two right angles, they share BC. So BC right here we could say is the reflexive property that they're congruent. Reflexive. Okay, so if we look, angle side side is not one of my shortcuts, but we just learned that if I have two right angles, the hypotenuses are congruent, so we got both the hypotenuses congruent, and one set of legs is congruent, so the one they share, then we could use our shortcut as Hypotenuse Leg Theorem. So you could write out Hypotenuse Leg Theorem, or if you just want to write HLT, this is just one more shortcut that we're going to add on to it. Okay, so this one, we have right angles, we have congruent hypotenuses. Okay, so triangle BCD and triangle FED are right triangles. Okay, but that's the definition of a right triangle. CD and ED are congruent, so D is the midpoint of CE. If it's a midpoint, that means the two lines to the left of it and the line to the right of it should be congruent by definition of a midpoint, because midpoint means middle. It sits in the middle of that whole line. Okay, now we have two legs being congruent, our hypotenuse is congruent, and we have two right angles, so we can use our hypotenuse leg theorem to prove the two triangles congruent. Which additional information would you need to prove each pair of triangles congruent by hypotenuse leg? Okay, we have to have right angles in these ones. My next set, I have legs congruent, I have my right angles, but I also need the hypotenuses congruent. My next one, I have my right angles, I have my legs being congruent, I need my hypotenuses congruent. Oh, this one's side angle side. Okay, so if I were to label it, I have a side and angle, I need another side that my angle is touching. Okay, so these have to be congruent as well. Okay, then we have side, angle, side on my next one. Okay, so side, angle, side, I have a side, and I need my angle to be in between them. So angle D will give me my side, angle, side, and angle R will give me side, angle, side on my next one. Okay, this next one is angle, side, angle, so I have an angle, a side, I need an angle to be connected to that side, so this one here, and N corresponds with Z, so I have angle, side, angle, and that. My next one I need angle, angle, side, so I have an angle, a side, so I'm going to need to use the angle up here, so it goes angle, angle, side, and X and L correspond to each other, so we get angle, angle, side, and that. Are the triangles congruent? If so, give a reason and write a congruency statement. So I look to see if there's anything else that they share. So it looks like they share this by the reflexive property. So I have angle, side, side. Angle, side, side is not one of my shortcuts. So the next thing I look to see is hypotenuse leg. So they share a corresponding leg. They also share the hypotenuses because they sit across from the right angles, and that was congruent. So we could say hypotenuse leg theorem works for that one. My next one, it looks like they share corresponding sides. They both have right angles, but my hypotenuses are not both 25, so we don't have enough information for that because the 25 is sitting in the wrong spot in this triangle here. It's not sitting on my hypotenuse to say my hypotenuses are congruent. Okay, this one I have an angle, a side, and an angle, so my shortcut's going to be angle, side, angle. My next one here, it looks like they share a side. I don't say anything's being bisected, nothing's a midpoint, so I can't draw any other conclusions about anything else being congruent. Okay, so this one, we don't have enough information. Okay, my next one. It looks like we have two right angles. They share corresponding side legs that are congruent, and their hypotenuses are also congruent. So by hypotenuse leg theorem, we could say triangle BCA, the letter that matches with B is E, the letter that matches with C is F, and then D. My next one, I have angle side side. Well, that's not a shortcut, so let's see if there's anything else we could prove congruent. If we have vertical angles, they should be congruent. So I have two right angles, I have corresponding legs congruent, I also have their hypotenuses congruent. So hypotenuse leg theorem. Triangle L, so L matches with O because it's between the 1 and the 2, so we have to look at the one that's between the 1 and the 2. Matches with M is M, matches with P is N. My next one, I have these being congruent because they're vertical angles. The problem is this is a double congruent side. Okay, so that does not mean it's congruent to any of the sides in this. So right now I don't have enough information to draw those two triangles are congruent. Okay, my next one, they share a side, so let's go ahead and mark that. So they both have right angles, they both have corresponding legs that are congruent, and also their hypotenuses are also congruent. So by hypotenuse leg theorem, so R matches with R, X matches with T, and then V matches. My next one, I have two sides congruent. I cannot say these are right angles because they could be 91 degrees. Okay, there's nothing else in these pictures that I can say is congruent because they don't share a side, there are no vertical angles, so we do not have enough information for that one. My next one, they do have vertical angles in here, so they should be congruent. Okay, but I do not state that they're right angles, so I cannot use hypotenuse leg theorem because they might not be right angles. So let's see if I have an angle shortcut. So I have angle side side. That is not a shortcut, so I have not enough information. Draw markings to make the figures congruent by what it is. So side, the angle has to be included in the side. So we have to have this one, and then L matches with K on my next one, so that it goes side, angle, side, side, angle, side. For B here, HL is hypotenuse leg theorem. So it looks like they have corresponding hypotenuses that are congruent and corresponding legs, so now we just need right angles in here. My next one, we got hypotenuse leg theorem again, so I need right angles. And then it looks like their legs are corresponding, but I need their hypotenuses to also be congruent to each other. My next one is side, angle, side, so let's go ahead and draw my vertical angles in here. I have a side, an angle, so I need a side that connects to it. So I have a side, an angle, and then I need to do its corresponding side. Go ahead and draw this vertical angle in. Now I need angle, angle, side. I have an angle and a side, so I need to get this last angle in here. Okay, and then I have to do the angle that corresponds to it, so angle, angle, side. Has to make sure the side is not included in that to make angle, angle, side.